Hello, Americans. I'm Kenton McNall. It's Constitution time. Today is February 12th, 2021. And all this week, we've watched another impeachment of the same president go on, President Donald Trump. I have a million things that I want to say about that, and a million things I don't want to say about it. When my temperature rises, I go back to the name of this show, Constitution Time. I try to focus on the Constitution to try to keep from being too partisan. The impeachment has been similar to the last impeachment. I've watched some of it. I haven't been able to watch some of it. I haven't wanted to watch all of it. I feel the impeachment managers have done a good job. And I think everyone pretty much knows how the defense has done. But the impeachment managers have talked many times about common sense, which they're referring back to the Thomas Paine writing that is often credited with creating the inertia that made our country independent, that gave the colonists the impetus to write the Declaration of Independence and go to war for their freedom. It is common sense that we, the people of America, have to rely on in this impeachment process because the crime was committed in front of all of us, and not just on the 6th, but over a longer period of time that started back before the election, when the President of the United States said that the election would be fraudulent. He insisted that the election would be fraudulent. Over and over again, he insisted that before it ever happened, even though he was the one in power. And he was the one that could have done something about it if there really was some massive fraud that was about to be committed on the American people. He was the one in power. When he actually lost the election, of course, he continued that story, which is now called the big lie, that the election was fraudulent, and just kept repeating that mantra. And then, when all of his court cases had taken place, and not a single one of them had produced even one single procedure in his favor, he targeted the last and only hope that he had for stopping the loss of his office, which was the Electoral College counting, simply a clerical procedure in the Capitol. He then took a lot of actions. He invited violent people to come to Washington. He changed the dates of that actual rally to be on the date of the Electoral College counting and at the time of the Electoral College counting. And he made his speech such that it ended just as those key processes were taking place in the Senate. And we watched all of that. And I want to say something else very directly to all of us, Republican and Democrat. We watched this man operate very closely for 4 years. And anyone who watched his speech knew exactly what he was saying. It's not that difficult to read Donald Trump. He's not that subtle. We knew exactly what he was saying. And even my friends who are on the right admitted, yes, we knew exactly what he was saying. He used the word fight 20 sometimes. He used the word peace 1 time. And we all saw the reaction of the people in that crowd. Our common sense tells us that, yes, he did this thing. And our common sense should be telling us that we can never allow him to get near power again. And if that is what our common sense is telling us, then we've got to turn that around and tell our senators and hold them accountable. Because the frustration of this entire process, just as the first impeachment, of course, was that We knew the result before the procedure started, because every single one of the senators say our mind is already made up, and really on both sides, our mind is already made up. I think impartiality is pretty scarce, and it shouldn't be when our country and our democracy is at stake. And I'm truly disgusted that that's the case, because they all swore an oath to the Constitution. They all promised to be impartial. And they promised to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. For the life of me, I can't understand why the Republican Party, what's left of it, and the senators would not simply want to get rid of this guy. What do they think he did for them? He came into power, he came into office. They lost the midterm elections, huge. And then they lost the presidency and the Senate in his final act of total selfishness as a politician. He's left the country with a massive debt that he ran up, larger than any other president ever. He's dug a COVID hole that we still don't know how deep it is. And as time goes by, we're going to learn more about what Donald Trump really is about and what he's been doing, as from the Southern District of New York to Georgia, he goes through the trouble he's going to go through with the law. All of that is going to be nothing but an albatross around the neck of the Republicans and the neck of every single senator that ignores what they've just seen over the last few days and votes to acquit for purely partisan political reasons. They could do so much for this country if they just put him on the sidelines. The only thing at stake for Donald Trump, he's not going to jail if he's convicted in this trial. He's not going to do a minute of jail time because of that. He just won't be able to run for office again. And they could make their futures as well as the future of this country so much better if they would just take him out of the picture. But they're cowards. There's no other way to put it. There's no benefit that could possibly come to them. Even if you say, well, the base. Well, not every one of them is going to be benefiting from the base. But there are those among them that want to be the next Trump. Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz. And this is the path they go down. I'll repeat what I've said before. Their political careers should be over. The good people of their respective states, Texas and Missouri, should not send them back to those offices. And that's what's going to happen, because the people are not going to turn a blind eye. They already haven't turned a blind eye. That's why Trump didn't win re-election. That's why the Senate flipped. Why they would keep on this path, I cannot imagine. Except that you can't imagine. Because the end of almost every government, the end of empires, is always the same thing. Corruption and greed and the lust for power. Vastly outweighing what's good for the country, good for the people, good for the Constitution. We have so much opportunity as a country in front of us. Just in rebuilding our own infrastructure, just in doing our part to save the earth. Massive economic opportunity. And if we just would join, if we just had people who govern who would just join in those goals rather than in the goals of hating one another and fighting one another as much as they possibly can, we'd be so much better off. And the reason that they don't, greed, corruption, the lust for power. I think that many of us may still harbor hope in our heart that people will come to their senses. They'll do the right thing. But when's the last time it happened in the Senate of the United States of America? When's the last time it happened? It's been far too long. And the people that could make it happen, people like John McCain, they're just don't seem to be there anymore. We've got to refocus ourselves on sending people to Washington that maybe can rise above. But it may simply be that the numbers are too big now. The money's too big for regular people, because that's all they are. And the more we see of them, the more we know these people that we send to govern us are just regular people. Maybe some of them are exceptional and they went to good schools, but they're regular people. And regular people have a hard time resisting the kind of temptations that our politicians are subjected to. And that's not an excuse, because they swore an oath. I hope to hear from some new voices. Mark Kelly, where are you? I supported your candidacy, buddy. I want to see some action out there. You hope for something that will change what's happening in Washington, D.C., because it's very difficult to watch and it's very disheartening. But we can't lose heart, because the only folks that can change this are the American people. Our politicians will not change it. You know, they've got to see the right report, the right statistics in front of them before they'll make any real change. They've got to see public opinion swaying this way or that on Twitter or Facebook, or I don't even know if they look at the television numbers anymore. We have a lot of issues to tackle, you know, and I had a mini debate with some close people that are close to me about what should President Biden's role be here, because I felt that perhaps he should, you know, be at least taking a little more of a stand. He seems to be trying to stay completely neutral, and they were taking the position that no, he should stay neutral. Perhaps that's the right course, but he's got a hard fight ahead of him, and we've got to be behind him in that fight. Sounds like we're going to get the verdict tomorrow. And perhaps next week we'll talk again about the impeachment. But soon it will be very high time for us to, one way or the other, put this behind us and hopefully have some roadmap for the future. But until then, I want to thank you very much for joining me here on Constitution Time, and we'll see you next time.